Hey, welcome back to the channel, everybody. Appreciate you watching. Thanks for tuning in. The last episode, we put the transom plate on the back of the boat. That's all installed now. So now we're just in the process of reinforcing it. So I have to put a stiffener plate that I had bent up in there, and the angles, well, the stiffener plate's going to go between the two big gussets that I installed. And then the angle that's right beside me there, that's going to go on the outside of the plate back in and tie into the hull. That's the angle that I'm cutting on it right now. It ties back into the hull. So there's two angles. It's actually a compound. It's the degree the hull comes up on, and also the boat tapers forward and back. So it's the vertical angle and the forward and back angle. So I'm cutting the vertical angle, or the vertical angle first. Sorry, I'm trying to remember. Kind of the vertical angle first, and then this angle that I'm laying out on the bench, that there, is the forward angle, the taper of the boat, and on the front to back. So it's only, like I pointed out on that, it's only like 5 degrees. So I cut the big angle first, and then I'm just gonna lay it out in there and cut it back. It's only like a 1/4 inch over 6 inches. So I could have, if it wasn't 1/8 plate, the outside of the boat, I probably wouldn't even bother cutting the angle. It'd be enough to fill, but because it's light, it'll end up getting hot shortness with the welding and all that. You'd pull it all back. It wouldn't turn out so good. So the tighter the fit, the better when it's light plate like that. So I'll just lay it out and cut it back just a little bit. So there it is there. It fits in pretty good. I gotta pull it up a little bit. I haven't got it square or anything like that, but that's the idea of what's going on. This is on the very outside of them plates. So then I'm doing the angle iron. These are stiffeners on the bottom of the hull from the short bulkhead that I installed a couple episodes back to the transom. So I just cut an angle on the ends of them. So then I'm just taking the skill saw, get them to length, and then I can get back my thickness of the angle iron, so I'm not blowing right through on it. And then again, the angle on the angle iron back, like I cut it on that. That's just for water, so water can flow into the bilge pump and all that. I'm not trapping any pockets. That's kind of the whole idea of it back there. There you go, welding it all out. I won't bore you too much and make you watch too much welding, but it's part of the process. So thought I'd give you a bit of a video of it. Okay, so what I'm doing right now, I'm tying in the keel into the back transom. So I'd cut back about 4 inches. I cut the top of the keel back so that I could weld the hull 100%. So I'd cut the vertical plate of the keel. I cut it back on about a 45-degree angle so that I could weld the transom plate in 100% from front to back. I wanted it all welded tight in there. Then it was sealed properly and everything like that. So I cut the top plate off of it, welded the hull, the transom up, and then now I'm just putting the top plates back into that, and I've got them a little bit of a taper so they spread out on the hull a little bit more. And then I just left them just a little bit above the vertical plate so that I could fill it all back up, and I tie everything back in properly because I can't obviously get underneath those two angled plates to weld. It's just too tight. So I figured I could just tie it all back in that way, and then everything's all back the way it was, at least as close as I can get it. And then we've got everything sealed properly and all the rest. That was my fix for it anyway. I don't know if it's the right way to do it, but that's the way I've seen how to do it. Again, I'm kind of flying blind on all this. I just got to make it up as I go. So anyway, this plate here, I didn't put video. It was actually, it's already installed. It was the angle iron just in closer, like in towards the front of the boat more, but still in the little lazarette that I was working on. So all I did was I cut an angle iron out of it, give it a step like that, and this is going to be where the deck, that's not it right there, but that angle iron is going to be where the deck ties in and bolts down. So I put a 1 inch crown on it so that we have good flow because it's self-bailing decks. So what I'm doing here now, this is just like a deck support for the back of the boat, like behind, this will be behind like the seat and the one bulkhead and all that. So all I wanted to do is make sure that I had good support with all the plates back there. So I put an angle iron back to them two little gussets that were coming up the little hull supports, and then I just put it level from the back of the transom to there. So I'll have a plate sitting on top of that I can stitch in afterwards. You'll see when I do what I'm calling the sump plate. This is the center plate. It's the one that I'm going to do next, or actually not quite yet. I'm going to put a stiffener in there, but you'll see when I put it in where the plate kind of comes up over the top of it and it gives it support. So anyway, that's what I'm up to right now. It's a little bit of a far away video. It's really hard to get the videos in the right, for me anyways, in the right perspective where you can see exactly what I'm doing, because you put the camera and you're always kind of staring at my back, so it's a little difficult to do. But anyway, so there it is. It goes straight across. That is flat with the, like, level with the transom plate. And then I just put two gussets coming down that tied into that little short bulkhead, so it's all supported properly. But then just stitch everything in and away you go. So the battery box, which is right in front of me, the one flat plate that's right in front of me there, I started welding that and then I stopped because we'd found a couple of cracks in the hull under it and beside it and all that, and then so I've only just got it stitched in. When we put this thing in the water, we're going to put the motors on it, get everything running, and we're going to leave the entire bottom of the boat so that we can look at it, so the fuel tanks aren't going to go in. That battery box, if I have to, I can cut it out, and we're just going to make sure, because it's been sitting under the water for quite a while, and we're a little bit concerned that there might be the hull might be a little bit compromised in a couple of spots, so we just want to make sure that everything's going to float and all that, and then we'll finish off the rest of it once it's done, but we'll do a water testing first. Okay, so these two flat bars that I'm stitching in right now, they're going to be centered to the motors. So where the motor's sitting, they're going to be right in the center of them, where the motors bolt onto the transom, so that when you bolt the motor on, it doesn't crush I'm putting a stiffener over top of them, like another plate that's formed. I'm going to weld it in over top of them, so that when you bolt everything down, it doesn't just crush everything, so it has some support in behind it. That's all that's going on in these two little flat bars. And you'll see I bring in another plate that's all formed and put it over top of it. Fold it in there. Yeah, so this is the stiffener that goes in between there, which the motor will bolt like on the outside, but it'll bolt right through into this, and that'll hold everything a lot stiffer. So I had that formed so that the angle of the top of it was horizontal, like level to the rest of the hull, like it would line up flat with the angle iron that I had put in there from the transom to the angle iron. So I can't remember what the angle was, but anyway, just so it looks all right when it's sitting up top there. And then I just have it so it's, once I get it in there, I had to fart around with it a little bit, but once I get it in there, it's a 1/4 inch below the top of the transom, so I can get a fillet weld in up top of it, so it was easy to weld. I got the flat bars that I installed were a little bit too high, so I had to trim them down to get the plate to sit 1/4 inch below the transom. So I kind of take a look at it and I'm thinking, okay, well, I'll just cut them off right there, but then saws are pretty dangerous. You want to make sure that you are holding on with the handle and one hand and the other back one on the other hand, and then you want to make sure that it's pulling away from you if it bites, because they grab quite a bit and they'll take a finger off in seconds. Not careful with them, so show them a little bit of respect. So on just a little bit of a side note, on the intros that I'm showing, I'm trying to change up the videos a little bit on each one and show a bit of different diving that's going on, because this is going to be a dive boat, right? Hunting and all the rest too, but the every dive that's on there I've done myself. I've been fortunate enough to be able to travel the world and do quite a bit of diving. So that was me in the Maldives. Ron and I went to the Maldives for a vacation there, and it was I spent 45 minutes with the manta rays just laying on the bottom and watching them. It was the most amazing diving ever I've had, really. They're huge, and every one of them is just unique, all the spotting on them and everything. They have them named and documented and everything like that. They're pretty cool. But they actually, like the bubbles that you put off because it's called a cleaning station. There's little fish that come up and eat the algae and everything off the bottom, so they think that that's what's going on, so they circle over top of you the whole time. It was pretty cool. So, anyway, and the previous video was that was Maldives as well. That was the house reef. That was I dove on. That was their we did a night dive on that. That was a couple of eels that we ran into, but we had a couple that I was diving with that ended up, they bounced and they ended up on the surface, so I got pulled off it. That's why I didn't get a really good video of it, but they were dancing around there pretty good. But anyway, just a little information about what's going on and what I'm putting in the videos. Hope you're enjoying it. So this is what I had formed, but I'm calling the sump plate. I don't know, I just made that up. But anyways, this is where the motors will, when you lift the motors up, this is the steering and all that will go down into that. You need room for them to go down into that. So that's all this plate is. I end up, actually I do a little bit of a trick on it, because it's tight. Like I know the width of it is right and all the rest of it, so it's a little bit difficult to get in there and hold it in place and all that. So I jump out and I grab a 2x4 and I just kind of step it in there and I push the two gussets out with the 2x4, spread it a little bit, and then I can get the plate in there, get it fit where I want, and then I just kick the 2x4 out. The two gussets come back in, and then it's everything's lined up properly. But yeah, I didn't want to fight it. I did that with that little gusset plate that I put in. I was taking it in, put it out, fart around, but I didn't show it on the video. YouTube's always the highlights, right? But so anyway, I didn't want to do it with this. It was just too much plate to put in there and too much fart around with. So I just slammed that 2x4 in there. You can see it just on the angle in there. And then, like I said, once everything's in place and I'm comfortable with where it's sitting, I can just kick it out and start tacking. Anyway, just a little trick I learned. So Ron and I are off to Fiji in October. I think we're there 25th. I can't remember what date we're going. Anyway, so I have a shark dive lined up with a company down there on my birthday. So it's going to be pretty cool. We'll go down. They said that you go down to 90 feet to begin with, do a dive with some sharks down there, and you come up to what they call the cathedral, where you line up, and then they have they're feeding sharks, so they kind of bring them in and feed them. And they said there's like bull sharks, tiger sharks, silver tips, white tips, black tips, all the different breeds, and a couple of nurse sharks and all that. So they said you go down and do that, and then you dive with the sharks on the first one, then you do your surface interval in between that, and then you go down for the next one. They said it's just like a sharknado. They're circling you from everywhere. So I might even just put the full shark video on this channel when I do it, just show you exactly what I experienced down there, and maybe a little bit more of the trip too. It's gonna be a pretty interesting place, so looking very forward to it. So any of you divers watching the video right now, when I get back from Fiji, I'll drop a video on the whole place and see how everything turned out, if I don't get eaten by a shark, and if the outfit was good and all that. I'll leave a link in the description as to who I went with and how it turned out and all the rest. And so if you're ever in Fiji and you want to do a shark dive, at least you have kind of an idea of what's going on down there from my video. Holding in tight spots can be tough, especially in little saws. You got to be really careful with them. Like I say, the trigger kind of went off on me there when I picked it up, so got to give them lots of respect. The only pipeline work I ever did in my life was in Narrows Inlet. We did a water run of the river project. It was 30-inch pipe, 7/8 wall. Had to be all 100% and all X-rayed back in. So I found out that I can actually turn around inside of a 30-inch pipe, get it crawl in there, and then turn around and crawl back out. So I was always the guy that ended up back welding. So, pretty cool job though. Interesting. So, interesting little side note on that pipeline that we did. We had about a kilometer of that pipe exposed, like out of the ditch, not buried, just sitting there. And we had to spike together a section, like 2 sections that were separate from each other. So you just cut about it, I think it was an 8-foot chunk of pipe, and then you got to fit it between the 2 pieces. So we cut it, tried putting it in there, and then it was too tight, and then we thought somebody'd screwed up, so we cut it again, tried fitting it in there, it was too tight. Then we realized that the pipe was expanding, so the whole kilometer of pipe sitting out in the sun over the period of the day, because it was middle of summer, it actually grew 5 inches between the 2 pieces. I don't know if I explained that right, but it was pretty amazing. So we just, the next day we went in there, we cut the pipe an inch short, tacked the one piece end together, and then just sat there and waited. And as the heat of the day expanded the pipe, it came together until it was the perfect fit, and then we started welding that together. It was pretty amazing. Like I say, it was an interesting job. We drilled a hole under a mount into the bottom of the lake, and then attached everything into it. It was a pretty cool project. I kind of wish that I had made videos on that back in the day when I was doing it. Yeah, pretty interesting. Well, that's it for this episode. Thanks again for watching. Stay tuned for the next up and come one. I move up a little bit and I put the decks on because it's easier to fit them without all the rest of it in the way. So it's pretty interesting. I'm going to have them bolt in, so it looks pretty good once it's all done. But there's a little preview of it. Like I said, thanks again for watching. Stay tuned for the next one.